Tighten up, leaders. Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership, the show that drills into the foundations of what leadership is all about. I'm your producer and co-host, Hali Gibson.
And I'm your host, Billy Duren.
Join us as we sit down with leaders from across the country to mine for nuggets of wisdom.
All right, everyone, welcome into the meeting room. Today, we're going to be talking about leadership. This is the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast, and I am the host today, Billy Duren. I'm hosting unassisted today. My co-host is my guest today. Hali Gibson has been my co-host for almost 50 episodes and producer. It's been an incredible journey, but we're going to hear a little bit about Hali's new opportunity and what's in store for her. So, Hali, welcome to the other side of the podcast.
Great to be here. It does feel a lot different being on a screen and not being in the meeting room. But I'm excited to be here and excited to chat with you and our listeners and kind of discuss what's next.
So, Hali, we're going to talk about where you're headed and what the opportunity is before you. But, you know, as we kind of look back as we began the podcast and with consultation with Johnny Gwynn, our engineer, I remember one of the first things Johnny told us about getting started is to stay curious. And it's been an incredible journey. Not very many podcasts make it to 50 episodes, and I think this is our 49th episode. So what were some of your experiences when we look back, you know, maybe what the expectations were, what were the challenges, and then how you use those things going forward into your new opportunity?
I think one of the biggest things and one of the biggest assets that we had was that the very first thing that we discussed was who do we need to bring into the room to help us make this happen? So Johnny and all of the work that he's done has been one of the biggest blessings to having the podcast. And truthfully, it's one of the only reasons why we actually were able to produce the podcast and almost make it to 50 episodes. We will make it to 50 episodes. I might not be there for the next episode, but we will continue to do that. The biggest thing was to bring Johnny into the room. He has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to podcasting. And so we just asked every question that we could think of. And we realized very early on that we were not necessarily asking all of the questions that we needed. And having that person with that much knowledge be there every step of the way to help you was a tremendous asset. And then the second thing was just that we had to be comfortable with not having the perfect podcast on episode 1. If we were to look back at our episode 1 podcast, it would be, you know, a little bit of, oh, we should have done this, or, you know, what were we doing back then? It was just, we didn't know what a good podcast was or how to prepare our guests or all of the things that need to go on to produce a good podcast. And then the other thing was just, it was fun. It was fun to be able to have all of the different guests come in. And when you really enjoy doing something, you're going to put more effort into it. And so I think that our listeners could see that we were really enjoying the guests that we had. We were learning just as much as all of our guests were. And so if you really, really enjoy something, you're going to produce a good piece of content.
And, you know, with any podcast, and I listen to a lot of different podcasts and a lot of different subject matters, but with any podcast, the thing that makes it great is the guests that come in. You invite people in, the subject matter experts, some of our language that we use, subject matter experts. And we were bringing CEOs and executive type leadership from all over the country, telling their story from the beginning to the end. I think back to Mike Rizzo when he was telling his story, and remembering some of the words that Mike said about plurality, about it's not about me, it's about we. And when you get great content coming onto the episode, one episode after the other, but then something shifted. You know, we thought we were just kind of building this for our team. And then we start finding out that there are other leaders listening to the podcast. And that kind of caught me by surprise that there were other leaders listening. Not just our emerging leaders that were tuning in. So it's been an incredible journey. We've had a lot of people come into the room to be a part of this story about building a podcast. So when you look back, Hali, and maybe not specific to a guest, but what are some of the nuggets, just some of your takeaways from the podcast that you'll kind of take on to the next part of your story?
When you talk to me about kind of what we would be talking about on the podcast, it was hard for me to look back at exactly what language pieces or what nugget pieces came from the podcast because they have become such an integral part of what our current language is and what we actually do currently. So we use constructively discontent. Who actually said that? I know it's, Nicole Thomas, but when we really talk about these things and it's really ingrained in our current language, we have to go look back at where we got it from in the first place. So that was really a fun activity for me to do. Constructively discontent is one of the ones that pokes out at me the most with Nicole Thomas's episode. And then the pause. The pause is a huge, huge piece of our the nuggets that we currently use. And that was from Susan Shaw. That was just episode 2. And it has made a tremendous impact on, how I live my personal life and how I live my work life and how I am a leader myself. And then Second Nature with Nathan Miller. That was like a bombshell moment for me to just really think about every single project that you do. How do you go the extra mile? And then there's a million different, nuggets all across our different episodes. And I wish we would have had a nugget list. That would have been really cool to put together. But you will find a nugget every single time that you listen to the podcast and the episodes. And when you're in it, you don't realize how many nuggets are actually being said until you listen to it the second, third, fourth time.
And we need a nugget bucket, I think, is what you're saying. We need a bucket that we can put all the nuggets in. It's interesting. I just heard someone in our office within the last 2 weeks tell me that they had practiced the pause. And I'm always, it's always fun for me to text our guests when I hear their language in our company and saying, your story's still being told. And I think you're right. I think that and I didn't think about the exercise of going, did I hear this on the podcast or did we steal this from somebody else? Because we're famously stealing ideas as quickly as we hear about them. We're trying to, how can we implement this into our organization? But I appreciate you bringing up some of those that go way back into the beginnings of the podcast. And it's hard for me to go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes, even techniques and how we did it, because I was agreeing with people out loud. Every time they would say something, I was agreeing in the microphone out loud. One of my daughters, as a matter of fact, corrected me, said, you need to lean back and nod your head and quit answering in the microphone. So it's been a fun journey. And you mentioned Johnny. Johnny not only has been a great advisor for content, but he makes us sound good. He takes all the uhs and the ahs and the stops and starts. And, if you are out there listening and considering a podcast, make sure that you get somebody who knows what they're doing to help put that together. So without further ado, I wanted to make sure to let everybody know where Hali's going. Hali left. She didn't leave on bad terms. She left here on good terms. Her and her husband have relocated to the greater Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. And now she is going to be the marketing director for RF Technologies. So, Hali, if you would, just take a minute to tell us a little bit about where you're going, the company you're going to be working for, what you're going to be doing, and really what you're looking forward to in this new opportunity.
Yeah, so my husband and I relocated to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My husband got a job up here, and we really just as a family decided that kind of exploring was one of the things that we wanted to do. And I, talking about our transition plan and, what was really best for the TFI team, when we started talking about it, being a good steward of our department meant that the best work happens when I'm physically there. So in the transition phase, I started looking for different opportunities that would be a good fit for me and landed with RF Technologies. So I will be serving as their marketing director for their current marketing team. RF Technologies is a manufacturer and distributor of safety technology for hospitals and for schools and nursing homes all across the country. And I'm really excited just to take what I've learned at Threaded Fasteners and benefit the RFT team. And I'm really excited. I will be honest, and I'm a little bit nervous. I have served with the Threaded Fasteners team since, my infancy of professional life. Threaded Fasteners grew with me, and I grew with Threaded Fasteners, and everything that I have learned about marketing and leadership and dealing with people came from TFI. And it was the probably one of the best schools that I could have taken for my leadership journey, and taking all of those lessons and applying it to the RFT team, I'm really excited about.
So, Haley, you said you and your husband were wanting to go exploring, and you could have explored in Baldwin County, Alabama. You didn't have to explore in Wisconsin. You could have stayed closer. But I get it. You've already heard that speech. I'm not going to go back down that lane again. Very excited for you. And really, it's one of those things where, it's like a proud father seeing one of his children move into a new opportunity. And I know you're going to do great things with your company. How you transition from here to there, we've been working and building and defending and nurturing culture, and I'm looking forward to how that works for you in your new opportunity, because all of us have, the nervousness of, what's it going to be like? Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different? All those things, you will start answering those questions in the coming days. And I'm curious, when you think back, and, in my suitcase, I've got these little nuggets of language that I've packed in my bag that I want to make sure to take forward into the new company. What are some of those little language pieces that you believe that these are things that I'm going to carry forward? It doesn't matter if it's RF Technologies or wherever the organization, but this is part of who I am now. What's some of that language you'll carry with you?
It's funny that you say that, because in one of the conversations that I had with the RFT team, I mentioned that I believe in bootstrapping when it comes to marketing. I believe in, doing what you can with what you have. And one of the people in the conversation didn't know what bootstrapping meant. And so I explained to them, it's really just doing what you can with the limited resources that you have, or maybe not necessarily needing to go out and grab new resources. So it'll be one different just for the different language pieces that we have at Threaded. And, if I say, oh, I'm going to be heads down, I might have to explain to a lot of people what heads down means. And that might not be something that I would have ever had to do at Threaded. And then, if I'm saying what's next in every meeting, and that's not something that people are used to, or even if it's, using we a lot, I think that that's something that is, normalized at Threaded, but it might not be the same in every room that I walk into. So I'm excited about that. One, there's going to be a language differential when it comes to the Threaded cultural language versus any language that I go into. And then, obviously there's a difference between the Southern accent and the local Wisconsin accent. That's going to be a challenge in and of itself.
Well, I'm thinking about that. I'm going to see you one day at the Packers game with a big cheese mold on top of your head. I could just picture you now at Lambeau Field, and it's like 40 below zero, and you have this big cheese block on your head. And I'd say, "There's Haley. I recognize her." But I'll promise you this: if I actually see that, I'm going to send somebody up there to tend to you, because something has happened. So you've either indulged in the culture and you've become a Wisconsinite, or whatever you would call someone from Wisconsin. But again, I'm excited about it. And it's funny when you were mentioning some of those language pieces. When we have our acquisition up in Chicago, I thought that we were going to have to hire an interpreter from, Southern English to Midwest English. So that'll be an interesting thing for you when you say some of those language pieces. I'm going to be interested in getting a report on how some of that goes, and then how you explain some of those things. But I think RF Technologies is getting a wonderful asset, and the things that you're bringing to the table and will be bringing to the table, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun story to keep up with. So, Haley, we ask our guest every time, and as a guest of the show now, I want you to talk a little bit about your experience as a emerging leader, and then into develop leadership, and, a little bit about what that journey was for you, because we have people at our company that are listening to our podcast. They know you're moving on to a new opportunity, and it's my responsibility as CEOs to remind our people, this is where we're going. This is how we're going to get there. Here's your part in it. Tell a little bit about your journey at Threaded for the emerging leaders that may be listening.
On June 23rd of 2017, I opened an envelope that had Threaded Fasteners' name on it. And I had no idea what Threaded Fasteners was. What I did know is that it wasn't a law firm. So I'll step back a little bit. I was a participant in a summer internship program called the STEP internship program in Mobile. And what it is they train you for 2 weeks on how to be a worker in an office setting. And then they put you into a partner company. And, they put everybody in a room and you open your envelope to see where you are going to be placed. When I opened up Threaded Fasteners, I realized that one, wasn't a law firm, which was really where I wanted to be placed. And two, I realized I'm going to have to do some research on one, what Threaded Fasteners is, and two, what I would be doing there. And day one, I stepped in wearing a full suit because that's what the training program told me to do, and worked for the duration of the training program and essentially never left. So I met a lot of people in the Threaded Fasteners home office and met Ashley Bryan and worked with the accounting team for a little bit there. And she asked me to stay on part-time to help out with the accounting team. So that was in the summer of 2017. I was about to enter into my junior year of college at that point. And, I really did love the team. I liked the opportunity to, have a desk job in college. That was really interesting to me as well. And I worked part-time my junior and senior year and, over the summers as well. And my senior year, I graduated from college, Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama, and did not get into the law schools for that year. So my plan was to take a gap year and, reapply earlier, reapply with my new scores, all of the things that, a college student does when, they're looking to go to law schools. And that summer, I did not love accounting as a profession. I'm not a numbers person. Did I like what I did? Yes, as like a summer part-time job, but it really wasn't what I wanted to do for a career. And that summer, as I was working more and more in the accounting team, I started to learn even more about Threaded Fasteners. And I did some research and did some more, poking around, and realized that back then we didn't really have any kind of marketing at all. Our website, hadn't been updated for a couple of years. Our social media wasn't, active whatsoever. And I mentioned to Ashley my interest in kind of helping out in that area. And she encouraged me to talk to you about that. And, at the same time, we had our 40th anniversary, and I had been brought into the room for a couple of those things as well. And I remember, Billy, you handing me a piece of paper that was just, it was supposed to be the program for the 40th anniversary, and it was in Word, and it just had, a couple of things and like a couple of bullet points, and you handed it to me. And you're like, yeah,
don't do it to me too hard. It's easy. I was doing my best.
And so you handed it to me and you said, this will be our program. We're going to print these out, for everybody. And I said, can I take this back to my desk and I'll bring something to you. And, so I took some time and, Canva and Word and put together, a program and handed it back to you. And that's kind of where those two conversations with Ashley and with you, with the 40th kind of, we saw that there might be some opportunity there. And me and you had a conversation, and I said, I'd really like to, help with marketing and with, these things that I'm kind of seeing could be, helped with. And it just went from there. I think it was almost immediate. You had a conversation with Ashley, and we created the marketing coordinator position. And, we have had so many opportunities to grow from that time since 2019. And I don't think that either one of us knew what was going to happen from then forward. We didn't know that COVID was going to happen and all the different things that we would have needed to communicate at that point. That was, a big aspect of the very early days of the marketing team, was a lot of those COVID communications. And it just kind of grew and grew from there. And it was a blessing to try new things and to fail at new things, but then to learn and grow and continue to develop and then, bring in more people into the marketing department. So we've had some fantastic people who have also grown and moved on to bigger and better things. Jasmine Cakeley, she is, on our sales team now. She started in our marketing team, and we currently have Jared Jones, who is a fantastic creative coordinator. And I'm just blessed to have been able to work with all of the different people from across our teams, all of the different branch managers, all of the different people in our home office, and continue just to provide value for our teams.
It's really, I'm thinking about, I remember that first, I don't want to call it an altercation, but that first incident we had with that Word document. I remember distinctly how foolish that you made me feel when you handed it back to me and said, we're not really going to use this. I know you're being kind, but anyway, I'm thinking about, how those conversations went from there. We're sitting around having I guess you'd call them a creative meeting where we're just sitting around spitballing. There's another piece of language for you to take with you. But we're just kind of thinking about things, and all of a sudden this idea about doing the podcast popped up. And, my brain thinks in concepts and your brain thinks in 1 through 20 to accomplish the concept, and, how that partnership was beneficial to both of us. And, speaking to emerging leaders and even to develop leaders, just because you think differently, put people around you in the team that can create this community of thinkers. And from those kind of spitball meetings, has developed, what I've gotten, and Johnny described, I've got an MBA in leadership sitting here bringing these guests in, every 2 weeks we have somebody new on the podcast, and it's been a beneficial blessing to us both in helping get it started. But then in the middle of it, like you said, it was fun, but man, what an education that we've got in leadership just by being a part of that. So just encouraging our emerging leaders that are listening. And I think Hali has said this, many, many times on our podcast. Hey, put me in, coach. Raise your hand and say, let me have an opportunity at that. And particularly, even if you're not quite ready for it, let me try this. And if the culture is built in such a way that you can land safely if you don't do it perfectly, then that's a culture you want to stay with. But to the developed leader, we need to be seeing the emerging leaders. We need to be seeing in them the qualities of leadership that you were showing I was seeing it way before you saw it, in all the things that I believe that you could do. And it's interesting how we're coaching our leaders to be looking for that talent. Who's the next person up? Who's coming behind you? Because we are all replacing ourselves eventually as the company is growing and broadening the impact that our leadership program is making on our company. So, Hali, just kind of in some closing thoughts, our podcast is going to move forward. My chair is empty sitting over there, and we're going to be having guests come in, and Johnny assured me that we can do this together, continue to do this together. I'm going to miss having you here in the chair. Your perspective has helped teach me how to be a better leader, because listening to your voice, listening to your concerns, listening to the things that your generation is thinking about. So I'm going to be missing you, but I'm going to be cheering for you on your next journey. And I'm looking forward to hearing the great things that you're going to be doing as we continue to bring leaders into the podcast over time. And I know that you'll come back and you'll report on how things are going at RF Technology. So I'm going to kick it back to you kind of for the last word, what your thoughts are in closing.
Yeah, I think that truthfully, leaving Threaded was one of the hardest pieces of the move in general. I think that is a testament to how much we do truly love each other as a family. I know that a lot of companies will say, we're a family, we have a family feel, all of those different things. You don't really truly know what it feels like until you walk into the doors of Threaded Fasteners and you are a member of that team. And so that was truthfully one of the hardest pieces of this process, was just leaving that team. And we talk about the language pieces. It has been a we for so long. I texted you the other day and I said, y'all, what are y'all doing on this piece? And it almost it was just this piece of realization of, At what point do you stop saying we when it comes to a team that you have, really invested in and been a part of for so long? I'm sure that, whenever you do retire, that's going to be a piece for you too. But speaking to the emerging leaders, I think you said it the best, is that when it's a big piece of how I became the leader that I am today was the reason why we're here. It's because I raised my hand and I said, hey, I think that this is a space that I would be able to serve well in. And I think that that is a huge thing for any emerging leader, is to say, put me in. I really want to do this. It's those stretch assignments that, David Dexted has talked about. What are the areas that you want to push yourself to go into? What are those areas that you want to push yourself to go into? And then, like you said, if you have a culture where you can softly land if you fail, then you're able to fail faster and try new things and do all of those things that, you might not have been more comfortable in doing. And then to what Johnny said earlier about getting, a master's in leadership during this whole podcast, what it has taught me is that every single leader that we've talked to has had to grow in their leadership. They have had to face the same challenges that an emerging leader is currently having to face. And hearing their testimonies and hearing what the challenges that they have faced and how they've overcome them has been a tremendous asset to me. And then on the other side of it, it has shown me that I can talk to anybody. Almost everybody in this leadership space wants to help other people. And so it took away the fear of going up to somebody and talking to them and saying, hey, I heard you on so-and-so podcast. I'd love to talk more about it. And, being in spaces where you are more comfortable with talking to people who you might have previously thought, oh, I don't want to go up and talk to the CEO. I'm just so-and-so. If you're in the same room with the CEO, you have the ability to go up and at least try to talk to the CEO. And I think that those are the things that really has helped me in my leadership journey. And I think that, anyone listening is going to get so many nuggets from, the past 49 episodes and so many more nuggets as we can continue to have the podcast.
Well, it's going to be an interesting journey. RF Technologies, here she comes. It's going to be a great to hear back, to watch. I got a front row seat to watch, and I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Well, I was challenged a little bit. I was really excited about getting Hali here for the wrap up for her journey and her part of this podcast. She's been such a big part of it. The pieces that people really will never know, all the work that goes on behind the podcast, just the scheduling and question writing and all the things that she's done to make this podcast a reality has just been incredible. So looking forward to the episodes continuing. We've already got guests lined up. We'll be in the chair here solo, and I'll be looking at the empty chair often, thinking about Hali. I wanted so bad to get tightened up at the end of that, but my emotions caught me, and just so proud of Hali and looking forward to what she is going to be doing. So we are looking forward to going beyond 50, very special and very proud that we've made it to 50 episodes, and we are looking forward to what's next. So until we meet again, tighten up.
Thank you for joining the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast, brought to you by the employee owners of Threaded Fasteners. If you enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe to, rate, and review the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Do you have a leadership story to tell or a question to ask? Email us at podcast@threadedfasteners.com. That's podcast@threadedfasteners.com. This show is made possible by our family at Threaded Fasteners, Inc. Our mission is to create value in and for the people we serve. Interested in learning more about TFI and how we create value in our team, in our communities, and in our customers? Visit threadedfasteners.com. Thank you again for listening. I'm your co-host and producer, Hali Gibson.
And I'm your host, Billy Duren.
This show is edited and produced by Johnny Glenn and our friends at Deep Fried Studios.